There are angry mobs everywhere, and if you want a little peace of mind, then you should be carrying this. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. Actually, I saw a video last year of some people just crossing the street in their neighborhood in the downtown area, and they were accosted by a mob of people, and eventually they kind of got beaten up pretty badly, and it was pretty sad. Just an elderly couple minding their own business, not mixing it up with anyone or anything like that, talking smack, you know? And one of the things that I wish they had had was something like this. This thing is by Police Magnum, and I actually am really intrigued by it. This is the first time I've ever had a pepper spray in this large of a delivery system, and I'm pretty excited about it for a number of reasons. First of all, if you are going somewhere where there are large crowds, lots of people, and you need to do some large crowd control, it's possible that you're not going to just be held up by a single perpetrator in an alley by yourself with no witnesses. This is something that is going to help you fend off attacks from a lot of people. The other thing that this might actually be good for is when I go out roaming in the woods like this, you never know who you're going to run into. Maybe it's people, but also there are some big animals that don't really mind small pepper spray as much as you might think. Something like this, while I wouldn't call it a bear spray, could certainly possibly work more like a bear spray. So this thing will spray up to 25 feet. I think it's most effective inside of that range. I mean, if you hit someone in the face with the little nozzle right there inside 10 feet, I think this is going to really make them unhappy. In fact, I think the effects for this linger like 30 minutes or so. Now, as you can see here, this one has a pistol grip, that dreaded pistol grip. It's not the pepper spray that makes it dangerous, it's the grip itself. And then we have a thumb trigger right up there, and then this little white plastic nozzle is where it will all shoot out of. Now, to get this thing going, you will have to pull the pin out. You can see the little metal keychain. Now, I have noticed that on some models it's on this side and some models it's on this side. So you want to make sure that you know where it is so that when you are trying to use this thing in an emergency rapidly, you know where it is. Now, I do want to show you that it looks like it is tied down with a little bungee cord right there. So I'm kind of curious how easy it is to get off here. Now, one thing I will say is that what you can see here, possibly, is there's a little tiny bungee cord that is looped into this little hook right there. So I think what I need to do here is actually get this bungee cord off first. So I'm actually going to kind of pull it out from this loop here, just like that. Okay. Now, I would say that if you are going to be in an area where you're going to have this at the ready, you might want to remove this. Now, removing it doesn't necessarily mean you can't get this pin out on your own. I think probably pulling it away will pull that bungee cord out of that little hook right there, too. But I tell you what, if I were going to put this underneath my seat or between the seats or in the center console because I'm driving somewhere, I'm walking somewhere, and I want to have this at the ready, maybe in my jacket, it's maybe a little hard to conceal. But if I were going to have this because I was really scared about where I'm going, I'm already starting to see some action. You know, I have a buddy of mine that lives in a downtown area, and he had riots on his street, right? You know, people walking on his grass around his house, that type of thing. You know, having something like this ready to go, like this, with the little bungee cord out of the way, I think is the right way to do it. Now, to arm this thing, all you're going to have to do is put your finger in this little ring right here and just pull this out. Now, I think you're going to need two hands to do this because it's going to take a little bit of force. Let me just see what it's like. All right, so it's not molded in or anything. It just has a little tab like this, and it has little teeth on it, so that's what causes it to just stay in there. It didn't take a lot of pressure, and I can put it back in there, and it clicks back in there, so now I don't have to worry about this being active. But just pulling this out takes a little bit of strength, a little bit of resistance there. It's kind of like pulling away those little plastic tabs on the caps of milk jugs when you get the new ones, right? There's a little plastic tab, and you kind of have to pull it away. That's pretty much the same effort that you have to put in this, just like that. So it feels like you're kind of tearing thin plastic a little bit. All right, now that we know that this thing is ready to deliver 16 ounces of irritant, let's try it out. All right, so this big boy right here is really interesting to me. As I have said, I wanted to show you that I went ahead and pulled the pin out of this because I'm filming one-handed because I've got my other hand on the camera. Now, I actually have a few man-sized targets up here, and my story with this and why I'm so intrigued by this is I actually had a friend that had to go downtown because it was midnight, and the only pharmacy that was 24 hours and had this refrigerated medicine that we needed that night was in the city of Chicago. And so we drove down there, and little did I know that there were actually protests going on. So we got stuck in traffic, and we were far back back enough that ended up taking another route and got to the pharmacy, got what we needed, left, and was headed back out of the city. But I did see on the news that night that people were being dragged out of their car, that the cars that were at the front couldn't go anywhere because of the protesters. I even saw that some people who had nothing to do with it were walking across the street and getting verbally harassed, and some of them physically attacked. So that kind of made me realize, man, you need something really to fend off a few people at a moment's notice that is less than lethal, but you don't know if it's going to be 5, 10, 15 people in front of you, right? And so something like this, like I said, it's kind of more of a bear spray. You can see how big this canister is, could really become useful, especially if I were going to go down now. If I had known what I know now, I would have definitely had a can of this or a couple, because if someone smashes my car window, man, I'm just going to let this sucker fly and let him sort it out later. But you can see here, this is pretty windy. It's not super windy. Obviously you can hear me talking here, but it's pretty breezy, and I think that is a fairly typical kind of environment you might be in, whether it's downtown in the city. It's really windy even with the tall buildings, but even if you're out in a rural area or out in the country, something like this needs to have the strength of the propellant behind it to get it through the wind there, to cut through that wind. So I have 3 man-sized targets. I am about 15 feet away from this right now, and I would say that this has a maximum effective distance. I thought of about 25 feet, but you really want to be closer than that. That is the maximum distance you can be and have this effective, but you really don't want the spray to be light. In fact, I think in some cases you might want your attackers to step into your personal space before you use this, one, to maximize the effectiveness, but also just to make sure that you're not just out there spraying people who have no intention of ill will towards you. So I thought I would go ahead and hold this out. I'm going to step back here a couple more feet, because as I stick my hand out, I'm getting a couple feet closer to that target. And let's just see what this is like to spray. Oh man, look at that. All right, so now I can actually kind of lean into this. You can see how much I can cast this. Oops, totally killed the tape holding up that. And what you can see here is these things are pretty covered. Now, what I will say is that at that distance, the pepper spray is kind of falling. So aiming it a little higher, like that, would probably be the way to go. You can see how long that lasts. I just held it down until it was empty. Every time I walk up to these paper targets after spraying them, it always like kind of overwhelms my nose and my throat here, and I'm always surprised. I feel like it's just like any other aerosol that's kind of irritating, but this really makes my eyes water, my nose run. Good thing I'm not hacking. I've actually used some of the smaller pepper sprays and tested those before from Police Magnum, and you know, for whatever reason, I catch just a little droplet of that, and it really makes me cough and gag. I will tell you, it totally smells like chili powder. You know, I mean, it's not like an obnoxious, horrible smell like feces or something like that. I mean, it smells like chili powder, but man, whatever is in it really, man, it dries you out and kind of makes you choke. So I like it because it doesn't feel completely unnatural. I mean, it feels like, you know, kind of a natural hot sauce type of thing, but man, even being this close to it is kind of ruining my day. And I think anyone who's attacking you and gets a little face of this would probably turn around. I don't know that you have to soak them. I think just the littlest bit. I would think that if you had a big crowd there and I were spraying this across the top, you know, 20, 30 people would probably be negatively affected by this bad boy. So I love the fact that, one, it's small enough to fit in my glove box, under my seat, you know, in a purse, in a handbag, those types of things. But that puts out so much of this pepper spray that, man, you could fend off a bunch of attackers. And really doing that on the run, you know, giving yourself some time to get out of that situation. You know, someone opens your door, you want to spray through that, kind of clear people away from your car or something like that. Obviously you can see it is soaking the tape and having it fall off the trees here. I definitely think this is the way to go. And for some jurisdictions, something like this may be the only thing that's allowed. You might not be allowed to have anything more potent than this too. So if you want to pick up Police Magnum, I have been using their stuff for years. Everything from those little pocket-sized keychain pepper sprays to the larger pepper spray like this. And like I said, whether it's going on a trip, going downtown, going into areas that I don't know, even being on a camping trip out in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't have to be people. It can be a very angry animal too, that I think this would work on. So I'll put a link to this guy in the description below. Peter Von Panda, out.